You have now entered a community of impact engineers. Welcome to the BSL Speaks podcast with your host, Brian St. Louis. Here, we forge the path of leadership by empowering young voices and nurturing the wisdom of seasoned pioneers. Join us as we bridge the gap between generations, blending the fresh perspectives of emerging leaders with the tried and true insights of those who've paved the way. Ready to embrace radical empathy and unlock the boundless potential in our youth? This platform is committed to empowering young visionaries and refining our leadership in homes, communities, schools, and workplaces. Our journey is about more than just personal growth. This is about elevating humanity, one inspired leader at a time. What's going on, everyone? With us today, we have a special guest. Her name is Denise Healy, and she is a part of this foundation called The Streets to Schools, and it's an evidence-based intervention solutions for courts and probation, ultimately helping youth to get to that next step in their lives to help them to grow using innovative and evidence-based intervention solutions to foster positive outcomes for the at-risk in our communities. Honestly, just having the opportunity to have Denise on this podcast, being able to feel her energy and being able to also know the great work that's being done, I am very, very excited for this episode. Denise, thank you so much for coming on.
Well, Brian, thank you so much for having me. My work is my mission, and I'm very excited to share it with your listeners.
I'm looking forward to it. Denise, just how are you doing today in general? How's everything going? How's life? Just tell us a little bit about you. Like, how are things going for you in your life?
Life is magical. I'm going to tell you it's magical. I am at a place in my life where I get to live where I want to live, where I can serve like I want to serve. And I have a team of specialists that are, I collect employees from all over the world. And it's very exciting, this venture that I'm doing now. It came after I retired. Yeah, so I'm excited.
What were you doing before all of this that got you into Streets to Schools? But what were you doing for most of your life before?
I am an educator by trade, and then I went into school psychology. So I worked with kids in the K-12 setting, and I was disillusioned with the support that kids got, and all my efforts and all the teams that I collected were like, I was a director of special programs and student services, and we would try to move things forward, and the effort was greater than the results, and it was quite kind of disheartening at the end of my career. So I launched this program in 2016, and it's been building a rocket ship as we go. It's just been taken off. So
that's awesome.
I'm amazed. So 16, 17 is when it started to take off.
Can you tell us just how everything was started? What was the mindset behind starting a Streets to Schools? What was the catalyst that really got you to get into that place of wanting to build this, knowing that there's a great need in our society?
Well, early on in 2000, I started a program online for kids because I worked in rural communities and service was not available to kids, nor was it cost effective. So I thought if I would develop an anger management class online, it would be effective. Well, it was back in the day, 2000, right?
Yeah, I was about to say 2000. That's a long time back ago.
And it was innovative back in the day. And so we served a lot of children in the rural community.
Sorry, where was it? Which rural
Southern California.
Was it?
Southern California.
Okay. That's
and one of my last assignments before leaving Southern California was in the Riverside County Office of Education. And I worked in the 3 juvenile halls that are in Riverside County. And if nothing can break your heart, that will break your heart. We had over 9,000 kids who were kicked out, mostly male. They were in all of these alternative settings. And for them to get back into the general ed it was heartbreaking. I'm telling you, it was heartbreaking. And I thought, this is not what I want to be a part of. I want to be a part of solution. not of perpetuating. And I would work with these young folks, and they would not know how to get out or problem solve their way out of the dilemmas that they've got themselves into. They identified themselves as the problem instead of their behavior was the problem, but they were the solution. So I always had this concept is kids are the solution. They're the solution. We need to help them reframe their thinking. And so I stopped for a while for personal reasons. I just went, this is not working. And then my tech partner called me and she said, I think there's value in this. Let's get going. So 2015, we started our dialogue. 2017, we started serving. And we actually now serve the 18 to, I mean, our oldest client is 85. But most of our clients now say, I wish I had this when I was in high school. I wish I had this information. So our whole philosophy is if you're incarcerated and you get out, you've already done your time, but you need some help getting back into society. So it's a rehab, basically. A lot of people look at the types of classes we do. They're psychoeducational classes. So they're anger management, parenting, and domestic violence intervention. So my curriculum is called Whole Souled Success. And so we approach every person that comes into our programs with love and compassion, all the way from their intake to when they exit. And the testimonies that we get by the time people are done are they're like, wow, you saved my marriage, you saved my life, you saved my family. And it wasn't us. It was that we were loving on them. And we were, it's not that we're not holding them accountable, but we do love on them. And people who have domestic violence on their forehead, right? It's hard to let go of that. And, it's hard to get a date, when you're like known as the person who's violent, right? So we love on them from when they walk in the door.
And it's interesting because I like that the fact that you use that terminology that the individuals are the solution instead of trying to find a solution. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because that approach, I think, has a very different perspective to how people typically see. They normally think that in order for them to gain something outside of themselves, that's what's going to get them to be the person that they want to be. But a lot of times the solutions that we can find are typically within ourselves. But can you talk how the concept behind solution based within themselves? And then can you also give us an example of what that looked like?
Sure. Most of our clients are referrals, meaning that they have to be with us. They've gone to court. They're held accountable for their bad behavior, for domestic violence behavior or child neglect or child endangerment. And they come to us and they have a chip and they have a victim mentality of life is doing this to me. System is doing it to me. What we do is we start them as they come in. We're the first person that graces them with love and compassion from the moment they call us, even if they're ornery or they are pretty mouthy or, they're a group of violent people, male and female, by the way. So what happens is when they come in and we just help them reshape the behavior. We care about you. You can't talk to us this way. Call back when you're ready. As soon as they're ready and they get in, our whole concept is where are you being successful with the strategies we're working on today? Because people like to story tell. That gets us emotionally jacked up where we're talking about the story. So-and-so did this and then this happened. And we can follow that trail or we can say, let's stop that conversation. Let's go on. Okay, you're here because you're a violent person. Now, do you want to accept that? And are you committed to change? Most of the people start with, I know I am. I know. I did this. Okay, now let's not beat you up. Let's not blame. Let's not shame you. Now you have to be accountable. So what are you going to commit to behaviorally change? As soon as they make that shift to say, I want to be different, and then they have success being different, watch out. That's when magic happens. When they go, I actively listened to my wife and I put her first. And wow, she loved on me instead of yelled at me in their life. We see that all of a sudden it starts to shift.
It's so interesting, like, as you said that, because so many people sometimes don't see that type of positivity in their lives, and it ends up causing them to continuously like rush after the negativity, rush after the pain that has brought them in that perspective or that predicament in the first place. And so you giving them that opportunity to see that, and they're able to see the work that's being done in their own eyes. I think that's, like you said, that's magical. That's amazing. What is the age range? Because it seems as though, so the Streets to School program, that is typically your youth centered work, correct?
The name is because that's where we started anger management. But we kept the name, but we're still working with
Mm,
people on the streets coming into our schools. So it doesn't align up necessarily with youth, although our program now, we just started a program working with incarcerated youth. We call it the warm handoff. So they're incarcerated and they start our
okay.
program, and then they are going to move into society, but we're going to be the link that connects them and kind of the thread that supports them getting back into society and being productive in society. But we've moved into the adult
Okay.
because we started with 20 clients a week. We're up to 2,000 clients a week.
Wow. 2000.
A week.
How do you deal with that yourself? And how many people do you have on your staff?
Well, it started with me and my tech partner, and now I have 56 employees.
Hmm.
That's how fast we've grown since
Wow.
2016. It's like
Wow.
off the chart. So we had to earn our right to go
Right.
into different counties. Every county had to certify us in
Mm,
California. There's 58 counties in California. We're certified in 30. We started in one. Now we're
hmm.
certified in 30. But other people use us too because we've come up with a method to serve people in a very specific way. Our staffers are from all over the United States and Colombia.
Oh, really? Why
Mhm.
Colombia?
Well, we had a lot of them are expats. And so we were looking because we provide service in Spanish too. And so we wanted native
Okay.
speakers. We wanted native speakers to be able to serve. And so
Makes
we
sense.
have, yay. So we have
That makes
native
sense.
speakers, but we have people who are in 16 different states, staffers. So it's pretty exciting. We
Mhm.
also, our second state that we serve in is South Carolina. So we're primarily in California, but we serve offenders in South Carolina.
Okay. So you're really getting to that place where your reach is broadening out then, not just
Mhm.
in one centralized location. Because if you're telling me that you have 2000 individuals that are coming on per week, or you're getting
Mhm.
2000 clients a week, man, that the number troubles me, because I also understand that because of that number, that there's so much pain that is also being attributed beforehand to getting that number in the first place. But that also means that there are people who are seeking help and wanting to see the better or the amelioration of their lives. And so, you're
Well,
providing that type of service in order for them to be able to see that.
I would say because we're referral based, they are not wanting to see us initially. They're referred
Okay.
from the
Okay,
court
fair
and
enough.
probation. So they stay with us because we love on them. So our
I see the
dropout
difference.
rate is really low.
We're talking about like the tens or
The state average for
Mhm.
dropout is, I mean, 52% finish the program statewide. That's a statewide statistic, 52%. Ours
Wow.
is up to 82%.
Wow. That that's a drastic jump.
Mhm.
And I know what you're gonna say, but I feel like this is attributed to a specific principle. What is that specific principle that you believe has helped you to have that 30% increase?
I think that the truth is people fundamentally are good, fundamentally good. Now,
Mm,
I know that that's when people come into our classes, they go, oh, that's a little Pollyanna, right? You think, and a lot of our people come in and they say, to be kind all the time, it's just not real. They say, yeah, right. Because we're dealing
mm,
with the violent people in our community. But when you get right down
Yeah.
to it, we're not different. So what I did is change the focus
I
of the
agree with that.
treatment. A lot of people, of my colleagues, providers, look at the domestic violence cycle and they kind of beat that drum. They beat the drum of here's the cycle of violence. Well, they already know. They are
Mhm.
masterful at the cycle. They're
Yeah.
in it. They know it.
Mhm.
If they can master that cycle. So I developed another cycle, a replacement.
Right.
So instead of
Right.
tension building, because my people know tension. They create it, they know it, they live in it, they manipulate it, they control it, all of that
Mhm.
stuff. So problems, I say you have skill. You have skill in tension building. So
Mm.
transfer that skill over to problem solving. Now, when our client, then move it to problem
I love
solving
that.
now. Be creative. You are the solution to the tension. You can choose to go
Mm.
into love and compassion. Do you remember why you married? Do you remember why you love this person? You've fallen into a pattern. So once they start telling
Mhm.
me, yeah, I took my lady out on a date, or our women say, yeah, he came home and brought me flowers. All of those testimonies,
Mhm.
they're small increments of love and compassion. And so we
Yeah.
build not on where they were, but where we want them.
I
Yeah.
love the fact that that love and compassion principle is your MO. That's how you want to move forward with your organization, how
Mm.
you think that this will ultimately, because I do also do believe that love can truly change. We talk about how individuals, sometimes we want to refute or push back with the hatred that's happening and push back with more vengeance and push back with more hate. But I don't see how that ultimately can help situations. I just think, as you said, those cycles continue to move forward. And this is in any capacity. They continue to move forward and they will continue to cause more strife and chaos in the lives of people. And so love truly does transform the lives of individuals. Now, I also believe that we don't always know or understand how that love is supposed to be done at all times in our lives. What was it for you that brought you to that place of understanding what love is supposed to look like
Mm.
and getting to the place now that you're able to help so many people, and not just the offenders, but now you're getting the staff members to understand your vision and viewpoint of love
Mm.
in order to continuously find yourself helping people along the way.
One of our biggest challenges, because it was started with me and my tech partner, was our fear of not being able to hire a staff that would align with our value, right?
Perfect.
And so
Yeah.
what we did was every person we brought in, we coached them up on the cycle and said, this is our approach.
Mm,
Because it's all about, like, there was
that's
one
good.
staffer who came in and said, well, you need to be harder on these people. I said, this isn't going to work out because harder is not better. Harder is not better. Setting clear boundaries, yes, right? But full accountability is we have something called the amend site process. And people struggle with that. But say they start swearing at one of my facilitators or they start pulling the power and control thing. We invite them out of the session and say, before you can go in, you have to make amends. And they
Yeah,
go, well, what's
yeah.
that? Right. So we sit together and it's not punitive though. Everybody
Ooh.
thinks, oh, I'm kicked out. I'm going to get in trouble.
Oh man, that was
They're
good.
not in
That was good.
trouble.
Oh,
They're
I
in
need to write that down.
accountability, but they're in accountability. Yeah. So they come in and they say, well, yeah, because if people know, well, did you swear at my facilitator? Well, I did. I did. Okay, good. Thank you. And then we applaud. We applaud them for being accountable. And then they kind of look at us kind of strangely. They go,
Mm,
I go, okay, so now you've humbled yourself. You'd apologize. This is good. How are you going to repair? What are you going to do to make it right? Because you're invited back in,
yeah,
but it's not right until you assume responsibility, not only accountability, but now
yeah,
own the responsibility. You have a responsibility to make it better. So they go in, they're used to being beaten up, they're used to being shot, they're used to being all sorts of things. But when they're met with love and compassion, I've had the heaviest of heavy bangers come in and just sob. And it's a true, genuine, I am accountable. I've done bad things
That's
and I'm
right.
so sorry. The way they repair with us is they show up, they contribute, they do the work, they apologize to the facilitator, they apologize to the group for being disrespectful to the
Yeah,
facilitator.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then we say, you're forgiven. And they just go, they go like this. They go, really? And they go, but I know you're forgiven. So how was your week? How are you doing? So what happens is, that holding on to things, one of the things that one of my facilitators said, and I borrow it all the time from her because it's great.
Thank
When
you.
someone comes up to you and they say, you have to earn my respect, right? You have to earn it. Actually, you don't. You cannot define who I am. I'm going to give respect regardless of who you are.
Thank you. Denise, I don't think you understand how beautiful. Okay, so I haven't had the opportunity to work with a lot of adults in this capacity. However, I have worked in the juvie when I was younger. I've worked with at-risk youth in different school settings. I've worked with different youth in so many different capacities. And right now I'm actually leading out in this program called Global Leadership Academy, right? And we have youth coming up from so many different places. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I coined this concept called radical empathy, where instead of trying to put myself in a position where you have to gain my respect, you have to do all of these things in order for me to care for you, X, Y, and Z. I flipped the script and I said, I'm going to respect you despite your curses. I'm gonna love you despite your anger. I'm gonna do all these different things despite of. And I was in a juvie for almost 2 years. I never had to be in a situation where I had to have a youth or anyone try to come off of me because I treated them with respect. And literally that one shift was able to make a massive difference in my relationships with them. And so I'm so glad that I'm hearing this from you from this perspective of the adult who needs to also hear it too. That I'm gonna give you respect despite even the disrespect
Because
that you
that's
give
who
to
I
me.
am. Because that's who
I
I
love
am.
it. Yes, yes,
And that's
yes,
who
it is.
my team is. And that's who my facilitators are. And that's our whole staff. We say, you don't get to define who I am, just like other people shouldn't define who you are. I get to define who I am. I get to define myself as a loving, compassionate provider. But that's a concept that even my colleagues struggle with because they want to go in and have this kind of hierarchy. You need me in order for you to get better. And I flipped that switch because it's not, I am just a messenger and a model. It is the person that I'm dealing with that is going to be the change agent because they have to change their violence. They have to advocate nonviolent. They have to do it, not me. I can only say that's who I am. And how often do we run into it? I mean, we're seeing it on a global level. But just look at not to get political because I'm not right or left. I'm just saying, look at the conversation that's happening that people are not gracing each other with love and kindness at all. What happened? What happened to our world that way? There's a great book out there. Oprah Winfrey, right? She wrote a book with a gentleman, and it's not what's wrong with you. It's what happened to you. It's what happened to you because all of our expression that falls under the pain and suffering is what happened to us. And I have to tell you, there's a lot happening in our society. We're doing a lot of bad things to each other. And I see it 2,000 times over. But those are the people that get caught. Those are the people in our system that get caught. But imagine just all the out in society of people who don't get caught doing microaggression and mini attacks and pulling elitist or higher. I mean, all of that power and control play has become a norm in our society. And we as a collective has to say, stop. We are wholeheartedly successful in our own right. And when I say that to clients or when my facilitators, they just sit there and go, no one's ever talked to me this way before. Or they say, I see on TV and in the movies, people are, Pollyanna, kind and loving, but that's not my experience. So we have to help change that experience for them. We model love and compassion. A lot of these men have not met women who are nice to them. A lot of the women have not met men who are nice to them. So how are these to know? How are they to know? So we close the gap. Piaget, Jean Piaget, who is a developmentalist, he says all of the strife and disharmony happens within the gap. So you have something that's really familiar. You go home, your living room's familiar, your bedroom's familiar, your food is familiar, right? But then you have this gap and you're over here and someone's trying to introduce something different. My living room's different. My food is different, right? We have to close the gap. I've got to bring to you who I am, and you have to bring to me who you are, right? And share our food. I am food. I'm about food, right? So share your food, right? 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 I
That's
will
real.
share with you and you will share with me. And then all of a sudden we have a better understanding of who each other are. Anyway,
So much issues come because of a lack of understanding.
or domestic violence is about power and control, but underneath the power and control is I'm not heard, I'm not cared for, never been loved, don't know what to do. I want your love and it needs to look like this instead of accepting someone for who they are. It's all of those things, but it comes from us. The source is not being loved. Some people, especially in the beginning, in the first 4 to 6 weeks, people are going, yeah, right, Denise. Yeah, right. It's about love. And I said, consider the possibility. Consider the possibility it is about love. Consider. And so they can start to consider.
What typically happens after they start realizing that it is truly about love and they get to that place of clarity in that? What do you normally see?
Oh, well, I just did walkthrough. I see because I'm all virtual, right? So I did virtual walkthroughs through all my departments, from intake to support to facilitators to even the billing department, right? Because we've gotten really big. The common thread is we are all walking with our clients. So they were laughing. I said, what is the greatest value to you in your work with us? Without question, they say it's when a client comes in and they've got the dirty mouth and they're not accountable and they're acting high and mighty. And then about 3 or 4 weeks in, they're calling in saying, can I just talk to you? I'm hurting. And they flip because they are loved. They start to flip. There's a Chinese proverb that's really great where they talk about a man goes to war and he comes back and he's meaner than, he's like a tiger. And so the wife goes to the wise person in the village and says, I don't know what to do. He's come back mean. And every time I feed him, he throws his food and all that. So he says, go to the top of the mountain and go visit the white tiger's cave. So she goes up and the tiger growls at her. So she learns to give him food and just stay with him until the white tiger comes out nicely. When you start treating people nicely, they might be confused. They might be really confused, like, why are you doing this? Second guess you. But once you are consistent and you model, because I'm respectful, not because anyone has to earn it. I will be respectful to anybody, but I will also set my boundary and say, no, you can't talk to me that way, or that's not really appropriate, or I'm going to invite you to leave because the norm is you don't swear. And so you are swearing and we're going to delete you. But you can come back. You have the right to come back if you own it and humble yourself and become, compassionate. So
I actually really like that Chinese proverb that you gave. That's a
yeah.
different one. I haven't heard that one before.
But the more you do it, the more you ground yourself and you become the pillar. You become the pillar for others. And that's why I say my clients will be the change agent. And when they hear that, you will be the one to change the society because you will be that influence in society to say, I've learned not to be violent. It's huge. It's huge. One of the things that I was going to share is that in my book with Jan Canfield, it's about this young man who was in Texas and he came and he fell in love with someone from California, but they were in a domestic violence cycle and he was he had a restraining order, so he couldn't be with her. And she was pregnant and she had his baby. And he was then out on the street because he knew no one. His whole family was in Texas. But because of his felony, he couldn't go back to Texas. He had to stay in California. So he had no money, he had no job, he had nothing, right? And he would show up to our classes and we were helping him along. And our services serve the homeless as well. So he was out on the street doing it on his phone. He just had his phone and he was down and out. So he calls us after and the whole class was on active listening. So he calls up and he goes, I need someone to active listening to me while I die. So I get on the phone and I said, what do you mean? And he said, I just need someone to actively listen to me. I said, okay, I'm going to actively listen to you, but no one's dying today. No one's dying today. So my team was on getting him help, right? And I knew where he was because we talked about it. I said, so tell me what's going on. He goes, oh, well, I slipped my wrists and I can't see my baby or my baby's mama, or we love each other. And he went on. So we talked for about 20 minutes and I said, okay, now I want you to actively listen to me. Do you see any shirts around or anything? Can you wrap your wrists? Yeah. So he goes, okay, now repeat back to me so I know that you heard me. So he read it, but yeah, I found my shirts. He wrapped his wrists, right? I go, okay, so what? Tell me more. And then we practiced active listening for 20 minutes. And then I heard the sirens and the officer or the person in the ambulance said, I've got it from here. And I said, we're still here for you. Take care. So we didn't hear from him for a while, right? He came back and he finished the class 4 years later. 4 years later, just last Thanksgiving, he calls. And he said, I just want to thank you. You saved my life. He said, I'm with my baby mama. I have another child, so I have two babes. I have a roof over my head. I have a good job, and I just bought a truck. Wow. He goes, and if it wasn't for your program, I wouldn't be alive. So I really believe, Brian, we are doing really purposeful work in our community. Research shows us 1 in 2 women struggle with domestic violence, especially after the pandemic. The national domestic violence statistics, 1 in 4 men. 1 in 4 men. You just have to walk down the street, very high. People did not know how to deal with the pandemic. And those, Brian, are only the ones that are reported. Those aren't everybody.
That's right. It's not, yeah.
That's right. Not everybody. So we're here to help people not be violent. But again, we can't do it alone. Our 2,000 clients have to help us. They have to say, right. I'm not going to be violent anymore. Right.
That's real. Yeah. They're the change makers.
They are the change makers. Right. I can be a model. My staff can be a model. So we have 20 on the front line, but we have everybody else's support, either billing or whatever, but everybody's trained the same way. Regardless of where they're at, you meet them with love and compassion. Our whole in-house training is how to deal with that, how not to be sucked into their cycle of violence, but pull them in lovingly, compassionately to the course. That's our training. Imagine.
I am imagining. And that's the thing is, I'm able to imagine. And the reason why I'm able to imagine is because it's actually happening.
It's happening.
And that brings me so much joy to know that the work that you're doing is absolutely transforming so many because the trickle down effect of hate causes continual cycles, but people forget about the trickle down effect of love and how that also changes generations. And right
Changes.
now you're changing generations, Denise.
We're dealing with all the ills of society that people don't want to talk about. One of my facilitators happens to be from China, and she came to America and she studied really hard. And she's one of my exceptional facilitators. Well, we had one gentleman who microaggressed her, right? And we always say, what's your success? That we always start, where are you successful with these strategies? And he came at her sideways and microaggressed. It was more macro actually, but he said, well, my success is sitting here trying to figure out if you're speaking English or something else. So he aggressed her, right? Now, we sat there for a minute, or she's typing me on the side. I don't know if I should kick him out or what. So I said, we're jumping on and doing amends right now. So I jump on, and they had a break, and they came back, and I go, do you know why I'm here, guys? And all the other guys were like, yeah, I know why.
Yeah.
And again, we serve quite a diverse population. So I said, so did you see the aggression that occurred in this class, which is a foundation of domestic violence? And I said, what did you see? And everybody started talking about it. And then the guy got defended a little bit, the guy who did it. He goes, I think you're talking about me. And I said, sir, we're absolutely talking about you. Absolutely, we're talking about you. And so this is your opportunity to humble yourself and apologize. Because if you don't, you'll be removed. I said, but moreover, I want you to learn this lesson. When you microaggress someone, you don't know how many people you're impacting. And I said, let's just stop for a minute. How many people in this group have been microaggressed? 3 people raised their hand. In the group, other men raised their hand. And I said, tell me your experience. Tell me your experience. Some of it had to do with language because they were Spanish. And they said, well, people call me dumb or stupid because my primary language is Spanish. And then someone else talked about microaggression because they were the only person of color in their classroom or whatever. Right. And I said, he goes, well, I'm sorry. I didn't realize. I go, do you realize now the impact of your statement and how it not only affects the person you're aggressing, but everybody in the group? He goes, I see it now. And then he goes, I'm sorry. I go, well, are you sorry? Well, I need you to ask, Mai is her name. I said, you need to ask Mai if she's ready to forgive you. And so I turned to Mai. I said, Mai. She goes, it happens to me all the time. She goes, but I will forgive you because I know it comes from a place of you not understanding who I am. And I'm here for you to support you. It changed the whole class. From that moment forward, everybody was like, wow, okay. Even that man who had difficulty owning his own bias, he changed too because they become humble. It's like, we don't do. Where does that come from that you think you can aggress someone like that? And so he gets in touch with himself, but everybody else in the group then becomes a collective that wants to support not doing that behavior. The gentleman who had a voice because he was targeted because of his language, or the other gentleman who was targeted. There's pain and suffering to be the only person of color and then be targeted. I mean,
That's right.
right? Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's also with this gentleman who's working hard. He speaks Spanish and he's targeted because of his, So we deal with all of those unwanted conversations. It's powerful.
That's amazing, man.
Brian. I invite you to come
That's
and
amazing.
observe one if you're ever interested. Not to chew it, but it's powerful.
Listen, so this is the other aspect. I am looking to bring on people who I really want, of course, which is this part that we're doing. But the next part that I hope to one day be able to do, and soon, is be a part of the work that is also being done and actually being able to see hands-on the work that, for instance, you're doing for Streets to Schools, that individuals are, because I have podcast guests from all over the world. And so there are people who I may want to travel and see and help out for a week and do some work with them. And so there is a point where I do want to start helping the very causes or seeing the causes that you're doing hands-on and maybe doing like different work around that. So I will definitely take
Well,
you
the
up
beauty
for
of what
that.
I do, it's all online. It's all
Yeah,
online.
I mean, and please let me know. Send me a link, so I'll just sit in the background and just observe and see, and see how things are being done. Yeah, that's amazing. Denise, I really want to thank you so much for coming on to the Madcasters podcast. And even from the second that you jumped on to the recording studio, I felt your energy. I felt your compassion. I felt your love. And I also saw your love cup. So, and it makes sense. There you go. It makes sense why your organization has so much success, because I really do believe, as you said, that love really can transform. And just being able to hear from your heart, being able to see the impact that is being done on a continual basis. I know that there's so much more to come as well. So thank you, Denise, not just for coming onto the podcast, but also for, even after your retirement, being willing to do this hard, passionate, impactful work. Because it's people like you that make the difference in the world around us. So thank you so much for that, Denise.
Brian, thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of BSL Speaks podcast. Your dedication to this journey is greatly appreciated, and I invite you to continue this journey with us on your favorite podcast platform. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and many other podcast sites. Simply search for BSL Speaks to subscribe and stay updated on all our latest episodes, resources, and programs. Your support means the world to us, and we're excited to have you join our community. Stay inspired, stay empowered, and keep engineering impact in all that you do. Until next time.